Shakespeare, almost like a friend, is someone you can return to again and again and never lets you down.
You know, Shakespeare asks us all the big questions in life, but he doesn't really provide any answers.
There's something inherently human about his plays and his work. I feel like he gives humanity to all of his characters, even his villains.
In Shakespeare's time, there was a return of a very ancient way of thinking that thought about doubting in terms of wanting to learn and know more, rather than in sort of dismissing something and just saying, throwing up your hands and saying we'll never know anything, and just kind of acting or not acting in a paralyzed fashion in the world.
Shakespeare wrote for his company. He did not mean for it to be written down. He didn't even record it himself. You know, it's only by virtue of a few of his collaborators that we even have his plays.
He brings up these questions. What is death? What does it mean to realize that you're going to die? You know, our own mortality, coming to grips with that.
You know, to be or not to be, why am I here, what is justice? Is the universe orderly or not? Is it possible to bring order back to the universe? What's our responsibility to each other? What's our responsibility to the state?
These are questions that have haunted men and women for centuries. They're not just problems of our own times.
Hamlet's always been at the center of Shakespeare studies for lots of reasons. Some of them are built around the question of inwardness and identity. A lot of people, when they first encounter Hamlet, when they're in high school or college, identify deeply with his character and with his struggles.
Shakespeare is creating the kind of story that has a universal appeal and touches on a lot of different aspects of life, from revenge and love and passion.
Working with Hamlet finds echoes in literature throughout the 19th and 20th century because it has to do with an individual struggling with his identity.
The play, Hamlet, is very much about the power of play acting. There's a famous line when Hamlet's trying to figure out whether or not the ghost that's told him about the murder of his father and has required him to avenge his father's death, if it's an honest ghost. And so what Hamlet has to do is try to discover whether or not Claudius did actually murder his father. And so Hamlet says, the play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. And so he stages a play within a play that reenacts the murder of the king.
Hamlet, of course, is trying to resolve this question of, is it really his duty to kill his uncle? Did his uncle commit the murder? And he believes in a moral universe, even though it's very hard for him to find his way in it.
Hamlet writes a letter to Ophelia, and he says, doubt thou that the stars are fire, doubt that the sun doth move, doubt truth to be a liar, but never doubt I love. And what we find there is Hamlet expressing this, in this letter, what appears to be a deeply sincere expression of love for Ophelia. We all go through, in all of our lives, whether we're young or old or somewhere in between, the difficulties of falling in and out of love and being faithful to the ones we love and being faithful to all of the ones that we love differently.
One of my favorite lines in Hamlet is, you know, there's divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. And, you know, whether or not you believe in God or whatever God you believe in, I think the idea that there's something greater that is driving all of this is, I mean, it's and that's what it's all about, right? I mean, figuring out what does this life mean.
Hamlet lives in a world which is ordered. The very fact that things are going wrong is a result of the fact that his universe is ordered. You know, his father has been murdered by his uncle, but this is clearly a wrong thing, and in the very cosmic order of things is now set out of his balance. His father returns from the dead to inform of this. And we contrast that with the modern vision of Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where we have the two protagonists, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who are sort of buffeted along and through the same events as Hamlet. But for them, there doesn't seem to be a pattern. In fact, even in the opening scene, the very notion of probability doesn't seem to work. Even disorder seems to be disordered for them, and they can't find what their role is here.
You sort of get two characters that in Hamlet you hardly get to know and who maybe seem sort of two-dimensional on the surface. You get to see this whole deep underbelly of their lives in RNG. And then in terms of the other Hamlet characters, like Ophelia, she has such a huge journey in Hamlet, and then in RNG she's sort of boiled down to like a crying, sobbing mess.
In Stoppard's drama, he takes these two characters and asks us to consider what it would be like to be a minor character in somebody else's drama. I think in some ways we all find ourselves playing different parts depending on where we are in our lives, so that our identity changes from situation to situation.
Tom Stoppard is a genius. He's one of the probably most intellectual playwrights working in theater right now.
Tom Stoppard is sort of a contemporary Shakespeare in a lot of ways. He has a way with language that almost no playwright of sort of a contemporary world has.
His language, he takes scenes directly from Hamlet and embeds them in his play, speaking in the language of 16th century English, and then Claudius and Gertrude and Polonius and Hamlet exit the stage, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern start talking in slang that's late 20th century contemporary.
Both dramatic plays happening over the same period of time, over almost the same events. Of course, Hamlet's living a bit longer than Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, but it's the same world, and we're seeing the same events from the background.
But for every idea that Shakespeare presents to us, he gives us an alternative view. So and he keeps us always off balance. So it's always hard to determine, did he think in one way or another?
I think he believes there's a possibility that you could have an ordered state or a just state in which people manage, at least many people manage to live good lives, but he seems to be skeptical at the same time about human motives and about what human beings are likely to do left to their own devices.
There are things that echo as just as important and just as complicated and troubling today as they were in the 16th century. That psychologically human beings have not changed that much in 400 years.